Are you an upcoming entrepreneur or author? Have you been looking for direction and know that God has more for you? Hi, my name is Quinona Gifford, aka Mrs. Q. Becoming is a podcast about entrepreneurs and authors, trials and tribulations. We always see them rise. Here we will hear them overcome. There is a power in every story. Welcome to Becoming. I am your newest podcast host, Quinona Gifford. This platform is designed for upcoming authors and entrepreneurs to inspire and encourage through testimonies of successful authors and entrepreneurs sharing their experience on how they have overcome trials and tribulations. If you keep yourself open, your life is about to change. Let's go. Y'all, I am so excited. Today we have one of my favorite entrepreneurs, that a person that I can actually call my friend. We've known each other for years and probably decades. He is amazing in what he does. We have Thomas, how he helps bring amazing to the wiregrass, and so like we can't even hold him. He's so powerful. We can't even hold him down. I have to book in months in advance just to get in so I can just be amazing in what I do. I've always loved taking pictures. I've loved when I met him, because for the simple fact he just makes my job easier. I come up with an ideal and he just performs. We are just so happy to have you, Thomas. Thank you for taking your time out of your day to pour back into upcoming authors. We're excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And I'm gonna tell you, I'm about to pull some wisdom out of him. He carries so much wisdom. Just to even sit down and chat and talk to him is an honor. Because he's a man that doesn't just do stuff. He's a man that researches, investigates, and he's always trying to find how to be better. Like, I really believe in my heart that he doesn't compete with anybody else, but he competes with himself. And that within itself is amazing. Again, we are so excited to have you here. So, our first question is, did you always know that you were going to be a photographer when you were younger? What did you think your future was going to be like?
Honestly, when I was much younger, I really wanted to be a pilot.
Oh, wow.
I was fascinated by airplanes taking off, even though I have a fear of heights. Back then you could drive out to the airport and walk up to the fence and just stand right next to the runway, basically here in Dothan. So my parents would sometimes take us out and we'd watch the planes take off and land. And I always said as a kid, man, I would love to do that. But photography was not really a part of it. It's what my father did. He always had a camera, always took pictures. And I started drawing. And at a young age, maybe 4 or 5, and creating sculptures, 5, 6, 7 years old. But photography didn't come into it until I got to college. And in my art program, I had to take a photography course, and I was so fortunate. Then my parents were able to put together some money and buy me a camera. At the time, which was $230, got you a brand new camera with a lens. Um, and they did that for me, and I actually still have that camera.
Oh, wow.
But I think it was a way for me to connect with my father at the time, who was always taking pictures. What I learned from my father was to push through,
Amen.
uh, and not settle.
Amen.
To For my grandfather to leave a mark and to always be the best at whatever I did. My grandfather, I never forget. I was probably 7 years old, and he had me to measure something, and he said, "Son, is it right?" And I said, "It's close." He tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, "Son, that's not what I asked you. Is it right?" I said, "No, sir." And he said, "We'll make it right."
Mm.
Um, I never forget how precise he was with everything.
Oh,
My grandfather was a master brick mason, and he only had one arm.
wow.
He lost his arm to cancer back in the 40s, and never missed a day of work. He went behind the bushes to change his bandages at work, because he had a wife and 3 kids that he had to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you start talking about determination, when you start talking about pushing through,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to read about uh, somebody to be my hero. I had my hero in
Mm-hmm.
front of me every day of my life up until I was 30 years old, 30 plus years old. Grandfather was there, and knowing what he went through, knowing what he had to accomplish, that's all I have to think about when I want to
Yeah.
not do something. I remember being on the job with him on one corner of a house and my father on the other corner of the house. And I was the one trying to keep up with them by, shoveling mortar into a wheelbarrow and getting bricks to him.
Mm.
And as good as my father was, excuse me, as good as my father was, my grandfather would be 4 or 5 courses higher than
Oh,
my
wow.
father. Um, and it was done to perfection.
Thing about you, you love to give back. Um,
Yeah.
Not only in the community, but you love to give back to other photographers. Many people do not know that about you, but you are one of the ones that I've seen with my own eyes give back to other photographers. You have collaborated with other photographers. You have shared nuggets and bits and pieces with other photographers because that's your field. Um, if you were talking to a upcoming or somebody that was maybe um, you know, thinking about doing this, what would you say?
Mhm. First of all, I would say learn your camera, learn your gear. If you have a camera and only one lens, learn what both of those things can do. Uh, and don't you know Nowadays it seems as though people who get started, they want the results, and they don't want the journey. They want to be able to recreate something that they've seen
Mhm.
and not really understand what it took to get to that point. They just want to be able to recreate something. And in doing that, I think they handicap themselves, because if they run into a situation where they can't reproduce that one image,
Mm-hmm.
then what's your fallback?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I,
There's no
I,
formula.
yeah, I think you have to know what your camera can do,
Mm-hmm.
and push it to its limits,
Mm-hmm.
uh, to learn exactly how far you can go with it.
Wow.
Um, I had somebody joking with me when I lived in Huntsville on the sideline with my little Canon uh, Rebel XSI, and in a joking manner, the guy came up to me and said, "We don't allow toy cameras out here on the field." I was like, "Toy cameras? What are you talking about?" And when I got my Canon 7D and I held it next to the XSI, said, "Oh, that's what he meant." It was a little small beginner's camera, um, but I was able to take some what I thought at the time some pretty good photos with it. Um, with with an art background, I was able to see things differently than a lot of my counterparts, who were more interested in the technical aspects. I learned the technical aspects so I could create what I saw in my mind, as opposed to just creating a technically proficient photograph. Um, it had to be it had to be something else for me. It had to be something a little bit more.
Wow. So basically, like, know know what you can do with what's in your hands.
Yes,
Know what you can do before you go buy another camera. Before you
yes,
go buy another for know what you already have, and
yes.
know what and reach its limits before you go starting with another limit.
Yeah,
That's
what you may find out is that the camera you have, you haven't pushed it as far as it can be pushed before
mm,
you're out trying to upgrade. And it's like you really have to know why you want to upgrade. You
wow,
can't upgrade just because it's the next best thing.
wow, that's good.
It has to be okay for what I want to do. The camera I have can't do it or can't get me there. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that has to be the only reason. It can't just be because of bells and whistles. Uh, it has to be because what I want to do, what I want to create, I need a tool that this one can't provide. Yeah.
He dropping nuggets, y'all. Yeah, but get some nuggets. He and even if you are not a photographer, you still can use them nuggets. Like,
Yeah.
listen, use what's in your hand. Don't go out. You don't know. Use what's in your hand, because what you is in your hand may be what you need to finish what you need, and then you won't even have to spend another.
Yeah.
You don't have to do another investment. Now
Yeah.
we truly believe, and I know you have, because even when I take pictures, I be trying to figure out what this is and what's that. Oh, you got a new toy, you know. So I know you believe in investing in yourself. So it's not that he's saying don't invest in yourself. He's
Yeah.
saying max out your investment and
Yes.
then go to the next level.
Yes.
Don't get
Yes.
too anxious.
Woo. When you get into photography, you have to understand this is a very expensive field to be in. It's
Mm-hmm.
very expensive. The camera I bought a couple of years ago, the lenses for it, you can't find a lens for under $2,600.
Wow.
Any lens that fits that camera. I wasn't ready to spend that, so I bought an adapter so that I could use my older lenses with this camera, and I've been pleased with the results so far.
Wow. That's a lesson. Like I said, listen, get these nuggets. Save yourself some time. Cause
Yeah,
he's just throwing them out there. And while he's throwing them out there, you better grab them. Like, what's the point of watching if you're not going to grab what he's offering? So, like I said earlier, you always, and I've just seen you give back. not just in your field, but just in the community. When I met you, you worked. I don't know exactly what you did, but you helped out with the tennis area.
Hmm.
I know that sports is a major part of your life. In
Yes.
fact, that's why I know you love to photo, whatever,
Yeah.
photo
Photograph.
sports people. But you know me, glamour queen. I be trying to get in there no matter what. I'm like, I can do that. I can. But I know you have given you have like done a lot of investments when it comes down to giving images football players and soccer and track, and just tell us a little bit about that. I'm not trying to tell it all. You tell it.
Well, sports was always my way of being included. Um,
Wow.
I was very small growing up. As a matter of fact, I think going to the seventh grade, I hadn't hit 70 pounds yet. So I was really small. Um, and to be one of the guys, I could only do that by playing sports.
Oh wow.
Um, I wasn't I wasn't very good because I was so small. But football, basketball, t-ball was my introductions to sports at a young age. Um, and I stopped playing baseball after probably fifth or sixth grade, maybe fifth grade. I stopped playing baseball.
Hmm.
Um, I could throw, I could catch, I couldn't hit. And if you want to play baseball, you got to be able to hit the ball. I couldn't do it. Um, but I was always fast. I could always catch. Great hand-eye coordination with the glove. Um, but in junior high school, um, I went to Stringer Street as an elementary school, and back then the schools themselves had the sports team, so it wasn't a rec league.
Right.
Um, and then when I went to young junior, uh, 2 years I played basketball there. My ninth grade year, I went to Carver, and
He telling his age, y'all.
oh, I don't mind. Uh, yeah, that was the first year that they actually started busing here in Dothan.
Oh wow.
So I lived closer to Carver, and I went there, played football, played basketball, and that was my introduction to also running track.
Mm.
Uh, but I fell in love with sports at a very young age.
Mhm.
I got to Dothan High, and I continued running track. Uh, I didn't have the confidence to go out for basketball. My mom didn't want me to play football, so
At least
I
I ain't alone.
played. Huh?
I said, at least I ain't alone.
He kept saying, "I don't want them to hurt my baby." It's like they got pads on. Man.
Mm-mm.
But I played church league basketball and still had some confidence issues.
Mm.
But my senior year, I said, "You know what, Mom? I'm going to play football."
Oh wow.
And I ended up starting at wide receiver my senior year
Okay.
in high school.
Okay.
That was also the first year that they split up Dothan High and Northview came into existence. So
Oh wow.
uh, I played football. Decided to go out for the high school basketball team, and I made that. And I was also running track
Mm.
for Dothan High. So yeah, sports. Even when I got to college, I decided I wanted to. I set out for a year. I went to college, didn't play for a year, and then I decided I wanted to play football and run track at Alabama A&M. And spring training, I tore my hamstring, which ended
Mm.
all of that. Um, but to get me out of my dorm room, Some of my friends got me out and said, "Let's go play some tennis." And I'm like, "Tennis? I'm gonna
Uh,
play. I'm not gonna play tennis."
it-
And I went down and played for about 3 hours. And I left the tennis courts. And at the time, Walmart was across the street. I left the tennis courts and drove to Walmart and bought a tennis racket.
oh wow.
And that started my journey uh, of a love for the sport of
Amazing.
tennis. Kind of like, fishing. You catch a fish, you hook for life.
Mhm.
That's what tennis was for me. And I played, I played, I played, I learned, I studied, I learned, and in 2000, I had the opportunity to become the men's and women's tennis coach at A&M, and I
Okay,
took that on.
coach.
I took that on with no experience, and I think it was because the AD just wanted a body, um, but he didn't know that I was driven to do more than what was done before me. So
Oh
uh,
wow.
I recruited some players, and in 2006, my women's team won the SWAC, and we got a chance to go to the NCAA tournament for the first time in school history. So that was wonderful. And I did that until 2012. I did that for 12 years. So it was at the end of 2012 that I really started getting this desire to get deeper into photography.
Mm.
I moved to
Me-
Atlanta and spent a couple of years over there, and
Yeah.
you know, I got around some guys that really knew what they were doing. I thought I knew what I was doing, but I didn't. I found out then that, I was this medium sized fish in a very small pond. And when I moved to Atlanta, I'm this small fish in this huge ocean of
Wow.
photographer. But they taught me so much. Um,
Mm.
a couple of them I run into on Facebook, and I don't want to leave this earth without saying thank you to those who helped me become, whatever it is that I'm becoming. Uh,
Right.
so I reached out to them and I said, "Hey, man, you don't know what you did, but thank you for
That's it.
pushing me
Thank
to
you.
be better." And coming to Dothan, I wanted to, I really wanted to help other photographers who were here. I'm not saying I'm great or anything, but I saw some things in some photographers here that maybe I could add a little bit to what they were doing. And I just worked at Westgate Tennis Center, supervisor of tennis out there, and retired from there in 2023. And just before I retired, I opened up a studio over at what used to be the old Grandview Elementary School building,
Come on, studio.
and Studio 3. And I decided I wanted to merge photography with my love for sports,
That's nice.
and to start doing sports portraits. I saw this guy, James Quantz,
Hmm.
who is in South Carolina, and I saw some of his images, and I said, "Hey, that's what I would love to do." And I just started. It was initially really hard to get a couple of parents to bring their kids over for me to photograph. I said, "Look, I'll do a session for $45 if you just bring your
Okay.
kids over. Um, just bring them over. Let me shoot. Let me shoot them." And it was hard because I didn't have the images at the time to show them what I could do.
Mm. Wow.
So I did get a couple of parents who let me shoot their kids, and to start to develop some images. And today that's where my passion is, shooting sports portraits,
Mhm.
creating something that kids in Dothan normally wouldn't get a chance to have.
Right.
Parents in Dothan wouldn't get a chance to have these type of images for their kids. So
Exactly.
I enjoy that.
So you mentioned something about mentor, and you mentioned something about people pouring back into you. How
Mhm.
important do you believe mentorship is? How important do you think that people need to pour back into others? So it's a two-part question.
Well, we're all just renting time. Uh, as the saying, nobody gets out of this alive. And somebody poured into me at an early age, and
Mhm.
they may not have realized that's what they were doing.
Right.
Um, I've always been a very competitive person, so when somebody denies me something that I really want, that lights a fire in me, and people don't realize that sometimes you light a fire in somebody, and you have to know who you're dealing with, because that fire could turn into something
Yeah.
huge.
Mhm.
Um, but there were those who poured into me. Of course, my father, my grandfather. Uh, I had aunts, great uncles, great aunts who always always believed that I could do, even
Mhm.
before I thought I could.
Mhm.
Uh, there were those who believed that I could, and they saw something in me. So um, it doesn't it doesn't do me any good to leave this realm and take it with me. Um,
Say it one
what, I
more
mean,
time.
what's the point of gathering all of the knowledge just to hoard it and to take it with me?
Mhm.
Um, I want to, it's hard finding people who really want it though. You
Mhm.
have a few people who are pushing
Yes.
forward, and I'm so happy to see it. You have some others that are getting started out that again they want the results but not the journey. And um, what what I've had to do is to go out and learn. And I would love to find some people that I could share that with, but that journey is not an easy one.
Right.
You've got to be hungry for something in order to really embrace it. And I just don't think that hunger is in a lot of people.
Mm, that's good. That that's that's good. So how important do you think it is for people that have arrived, as we say, to pour back into other entrepreneurs?
Well, let me say this. I think that you should start pouring on your journey. I don't really see people as having arrived. I see people as continuing their journey. Now,
Mm,
no matter where you are, there's somebody looking up to you and they think that person's
exactly.
arrived. Uh, there are those who look at my work and say, "Man, you're there." I'm not there. Not in my mind. Not in my heart. I'm I'm
In our life.
hungrier now than I was, 5 years ago,
Yeah.
because I've seen some things that I can do, and the only thing that does is inspire me to keep pushing, to push forward. So
Wow.
I think you have to start pouring into people along the way. Um,
Yeah.
give them a reason to want to support your journey,
Mm-hmm.
um, by by pouring into people and by, as you
Right.
said, leaving those nuggets along the way.
Right.
Um, you know, we might not all be great, but we can still help somebody else get to where they need to be.
Mm.
So yeah, I think it's very important to do that. I think as a kid growing up, I was extremely bashful, extremely shy. I couldn't really talk to people because I didn't know how.
Mm.
Um, and until I started coaching, I would go home and stay there until somebody called me and said, "Let's go fishing." Um, didn't I? You know, I didn't really feel comfortable talking to people, and
Wow.
it's still a challenge.
Mm.
But again, I've probably got more years behind me than I do in front of me,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
you know, being able to being able to leave something with somebody, uh,
Mhm.
not something material, but something very tangible that
Mm.
may help them avoid some of the pitfalls that I had to climb out of, or somebody helped me climb out of.
That's wow. It's so like I can't even repeat all the nuggets you just dropped. Oh my goodness. Oh, I love this. As many times as me and you have talked, and many times as me and you have shared, I am learning over here, and I'm just like, wait, what? I'm not saying I thought I knew everything about you, but listen, I'm like, you've been holding out.
One of the things that I've always been a people watcher,
Yeah,
and
I can see that.
because I've never really been a vocal person, I
Uh-huh.
listen a lot. So uh, typically, when you and I get together and we start talking, I spend more time listening than I do talking, and it's that case
Be
with everybody.
quiet.
I
Like,
listen a lot, listen a lot. And that's how you learn. My grandfather said, "You don't have to ask somebody to tell you something. If you want to know something, shut up and listen, and they'll tell you anything you want to know.
I'm
If you
about to
willing
do it. Like,
to
we're gonna be looking at each other like
listen."
I'm like, these are so great nuggets. Okay. So if you had something that you haven't shared or something that you feel led to share, what would you say? Because we're a platform upcoming authors and entrepreneurs. What would you say to them?
So I just told somebody this yesterday, and it's been on my mind since yesterday, and I hope I didn't come across too harsh, um, to the person that I told this to. But they were talking about, building up their portfolio. And I said, I think that your time would be better served if you practiced. Um,
Mm,
there's not enough people practicing their craft. Um,
mm,
Everybody wants to get on stage and perform, but when do you spend your time practicing to hone your
right.
skills? Uh, and I
Right.
really hope I didn't come across too harshly, um, in telling this person that, um, because and then their retort was, "Well, how often have you practiced?" I'm like, I used to lay in the bed and take pictures of my bedpost. and changed the settings on my camera so that I could see exactly what those settings on the camera did.
Right.
So, you know, you can't come into my studio and look at the wall and say, "Wow, he's doing all of this." The road that got me to where I am is
Mm-hmm.
because I invested a lot of time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I invested a lot of time in learning and in honing my skills. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my friends in Atlanta, we'd get together, and one of them was always saying, "You're bringing too many lights. I'm trying to carry as few lights as possible." And that's great, but what you're trying to do and where I'm trying to go are two different places. And he would probably lose his mind now if he saw that I was shooting with 6 and 7 lights just to get the shot that I want, but that's what it requires.
Mm-hmm.
And people ask, "Well, what lights do you use?" and all this other stuff. And I'm like, "How many lights do you have?" "I got one." "Okay, learn to use that one." When I started,
Mm-hmm.
I had one light, and I learned how to manipulate that light to get the images that I
Wow.
wanted. If you're going to start off with 5 and 6 lights and not know what one light can do, again, you're setting yourself up to run into that brick wall.
Mm-hmm.
And without practicing, without learning again what your camera can do, but
Wow.
practicing to become creative. Uh, and it's all aspects of that image. It's not just whether or not the detail is very sharp. How did you pose your subject? What is it that you were trying to say about your subject? You know,
Wow.
um, so it's a lot of things to it. But if you don't practice that, if you don't get into the habit of being better than all the rest,
Mm.
you won't just wake up one day and be that.
You won't just wake up one day and be that. Listen. Okay, I'm gonna calm down. Because this is not, we're not talking about me. We're not talking about what you won't wake up and be that. You cannot be. Mm,
No, you got to practice
got to. You got to.
with
And you
anything.
have to learn to practice when nobody's around. Nobody
That
sees things.
that's the most important time
Yes.
because you can make mistakes and you can be honest with yourself that these are mistakes. But speaking of photography, everybody wants all of their shots to be perfect. That's not going to happen. So if you're going into a photo shoot and you're telling yourself, "Okay, I need to post these pictures." Why? Some of these need to be practiced. Allen Iverson, we're talking about practice, man. You
Mhm.
have to practice. You have to prepare to be good. You can't just wake up and be good. You
You
got to
got to
prepare for it.
prepare to be Thomas.
We're not even talking about being great. I'm talking about being
Listen,
good. You got to
listen.
prepare to be good in anything.
Mm, my Lord. Mm. I hope y'all getting these nuggets because he is blessing my soul. I gotta keep calm, so he blessing me. So I have one more question
Yep.
because you have just literally like shook me and blown me, but I've been calm. Like I've been like, okay, Kononi, you're the hostess. You can't go shout over there. So
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you
okay,
can.
yeah, don't give me a chance. Okay, so I just need a moment. I need a moment. Okay, so if we have somebody that's watching,
Hmm.
whether now or later, somebody that's watching, and they are like, "Listen, he's talking to me. I
Hmm.
need to be mentored. I want to." I care about it. I want to be the best I can be. How can they get in touch with you? Whether it's email, social media, like tell them how they can get in touch with you.
Email at studio3llc@gmail.com. At this point in my life, I'm a lot like my grandfather. So if you're not really ready to commit your time to learning and being good, um, please don't waste my time. The things that I want to accomplish, and this is a commitment. It's a commitment from both of us. Make an investment, and I'm not talking about financial investment. You got to make an investment of your time, your energy. There's got to be an effort, and if you don't have that, then yeah, we can chat, and I can share some things with you. You have to be ready for it. You can't just show up. You can't just show up with an empty cup. You don't have to bring something.
Listen, your time, like you got the one thing I've learned even throughout the different adventures that I have in business is you have to invest. If you don't, you're gonna, what you put in is what you're gonna get out of it. Sometimes it may be time, sometimes it may be finances. You have to, you gotta want it bad. Like you gotta want it bad. You can't expect it just to come to your hand because it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work.
I usually ask
It's not a
people,
hobby.
if they have a camera, okay, which camera do you have?
Mm-hmm.
What lenses do you have? And most people don't even know. They know the brand of their camera, but what specific camera do you have? What lenses do you have? If you don't at least know your gear, then you're not quite ready um, to start
Mm.
that. So you have to make an investment
Amen.
in
Amen.
in your own knowledge.
Mm.
You have
Well,
to.
Thomas, it has been great having you. Nick, I'm gonna have to write me some notes and some get these nuggets that you that freely then gave. And the biggest nugget you gave me was in our conversation, be quiet.
No, 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 because then it'll be quiet on the phone.
No,
No, no.
I
Oh,
need and one thing I will say is one thing just real quick before we close. One thing I love about you, you don't have limits on you. If I ever come
mm-mm.
to you and I say, Thomas, I have an ideal, or Thomas, I want to do this, or I want to do that, you exceed my expectations. I remember when I was becoming an author, you are the one that set that shooter because I didn't want to sit in the chair. I didn't want, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my goodness, like and then even down to first book, that
Hmm.
shoot that he did the shoot with the book, and the light was
Yeah.
coming from the book.
Yeah.
I didn't want.
Right.
He was like,
Right.
just trust me,
Right.
and it ended up being a whole cover. And everybody wanted to see them pictures or wanted was I mean and I personally I get pictures. I've been told that you're supposed to get pictures every 6 months.
Hmm.
I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
get them once a year.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is, even if I didn't get pictures every year, your pictures are so good that I could stretch them longer. But I just get tired of seeing them because I use what I get. You know what you just
Yeah.
said? Use what's in your hand. So
Yeah.
I use
Yeah.
what's in my hand. So I
Yeah.
just want to thank you for being one of our first guests on Becoming. And we are grateful for the seeds you've sown and how you poured so well.
Well, I'm my very first interview podcast. So I hope that it turns out well,
It
and
is.
that maybe you'll have me back and later on down the road, and we'll talk about some more in depth stuff.
Yes, because we didn't even get into the author, I mean the artist or none of that. So we know we gotta
Yeah,
have you back so we can just
yeah.
give it. I mean, but you were just giving so many great nuggets. I couldn't even, you know. But we definitely appreciate. I didn't want to just interrupt because I'm like, this is good, you know. So we definitely thank you, and it was an honor. It really was.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you for supporting Becoming. I know that you have enjoyed this episode, but remember, caring is sharing. So share us with someone that needs to be encouraged or inspired, an entrepreneur or a person that is wanting to become an author. My name is Quinona Gifford, and I am your podcast host. Become who God needs you to be.